Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle. You are listening to or watching Radio Maine, where each week we explore and celebrate creativity and the human spirit. We're sponsored by the Portland Art Gallery in Portland, Maine. This is the 8th in our solo episode series. Today, we are talking about carrying the song forward. It begins with a holiday song you may know well, Over the River and Through the Woods. I recently referenced this song in my writing on the Bountiful Path. When I was a child, that song felt like a whole world. I could picture the horse, the sleigh, the snow-covered trees, and the warm house waiting on the other side of the river. I assumed this was how the season was supposed to feel. Everyone together, everything simple and clear, a straight line from here to there. Recently, that song came back to me in a very different setting. I was on a long run that took me across the Little John Island Causeway, over the bridge to Cousins Island, and along the Royal River. Instead of sitting in the back of a sleigh, I was in running shoes, with a small pack with a change of clothes for a baby shower across town. Cars passed, the wind was cold, my watch buzzed quietly on my wrist. Halfway up a hill, the words drifted into my mind. Over the river and through the woods, to grandmother's house we go. I smiled because the scene around me did not look anything like the song. There was no sleigh, no bells, certainly no horse. And yet the heart of the song was still true. I was moving toward family. I was on my way to celebrate a child who had not yet been born. I was crossing a river that has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. As I've written about, the Royal River and I have a long history together. I have skated on it, swum in it, paddled across it, driven beside it every season. I have gone to school, practiced medicine, and raised children along its banks. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being just scenery. It became a kind of waypoint. Each time I cross it, I find myself checking in with my own life. Where am I now? What is changing? What still matters? That day, as the song repeated in my mind, I realized I was no longer the child being brought to someone else's house. I was one of the people doing the planning and the traveling and the holding. I was helping make decisions and participating on where we would meet, who could come, how much I had to give when it came to this particular holiday tradition. The song had not changed. The role I played inside it had. You might have your own version of this. Maybe it is a holiday song or a family saying. Maybe it is a story that gets told at every reunion. At some point, you notice that you have moved from the background of that story to the center. The script is the same, but your part in it is very different. This can be a tender moment. It highlights the quiet agreements we have made without always realizing it. The unspoken lines about who organizes the meal, who smooths out the arguments, who leaves early to check on someone who's not there, who always says yes at work when there's one more meeting to cover. In medicine and leadership, these patterns can feel almost invisible. They become part of the job. We take an extra shift. We answer one more message late at night. We volunteer to have the hard conversation because someone needs to do it, and we know that we can. None of this is bad on its own. These choices often come from love and commitment, but over time, they can harden into a single story about who we are allowed to be. I think of a patient I once cared for who had lived through a major loss and a long recovery. On paper, his labs were stable. His vital signs were fine. From the outside, people often called him strong. But again and again, he came back to the same sentence, "I just do not want to be a burden." It sounded almost casual when he said it, with a small shrug. But that one line shaped so many of his choices. It affected whether he asked for a ride to appointments or pretended he could manage on his own. It influenced whether he told his family when he felt lonely. It changed how honest he was about his pain. Eventually, we started to get curious about that sentence. Where did it come from? Who had taught him that needing support meant being a burden? Was it possible that the people he loved wanted to help him? Was it possible that relying on others could be a part of a healthy relationship, not a failure? We did not erase that story in a single visit. What shifted first was his awareness. He began to notice when that old line showed up, when it tried to steer his decisions. That noticing gave him a little bit of room to ask a different question. What if reaching out is an act of care, not just for me, but for them? Most of us have our own repeated lines. They might sound like, I am the one who keeps everyone happy, or if I slow down, everything will fall apart, or I should be able to handle this by myself. We rarely say these out loud at the holiday table or in a team meeting. They live just underneath, guiding our choices. In earlier episodes, we have talked about what happens when everything seems to fall apart at the same time and about the small experiments that can help us rediscover curiosity. Today is about the quieter, ongoing work in between those moments. The work of noticing the songs and sentences that have been running in the background for years and choosing how we want to carry them forward. This does not mean rejecting our families or abandoning our responsibilities. It means bringing more intention to the roles we play. Sometimes that shows up in very practical ways. You might look at a busy month on the calendar and realize that what was once exciting now feels draining. Instead of automatically saying yes to every event, you might choose one or two that feel most meaningful and allow the others to rest this year. At work, you might experiment with sharing a responsibility you usually held alone. Maybe someone else leads the meeting while you listen. Maybe a colleague steps in to make the phone call you always make, not because you no longer care, but because you are curious about what might grow if you do not carry it all. In your own body, it might look like choosing a slower walk instead of a frantic workout, or giving yourself permission to take a deep breath before answering the next message. Small shifts, not dramatic, but different. One of the things I appreciate about narrative medicine is the idea that we can revise our own stories without pretending that what came before did not happen. We can honor the traditions and patterns that brought us this far and still allow new chapters to unfold. For me, that long run across the river helped me see that Over the River and Through the Woods was more than a children's song. It was a template I had quietly carried for what this time of year should look like. Everyone in one place, certain foods on the table, certain roles assigned without discussion. But my actual life and the lives of the people I love are more complicated and more beautiful than any simple song. There are new babies and new jobs. There are losses we did not expect. There are people who live far away. There are blended families, chosen families, people who travel for work, people whose health needs shape what is possible. It is okay for the way we gather to change. It is okay for the melody to stay familiar while the arrangement shifts. So here is my invitation for you this week. First, notice one story or sentence that seems to repeat itself in your life. It might be something you say to yourself when you look in the mirror, when you open your email, or when you think about a particular relationship. Try to catch it in the act. Hear the words as if they were the lyrics. Second, gently ask where that line came from. Did you learn it from a parent, from a teacher, from a workplace culture, from a time in your life when it may have actually helped you? Acknowledge the part of you that picked up that story for a reason. Third, consider whether that line still fits the person you are now. If it does, you can keep it. If it feels too tight, see if you can adjust it slightly. Change, I must keep everyone happy, to I care about others and I'm allowed to have needs too. Change, I never rest, to I'm learning how to rest. Finally, choose one small action that lines up with the revised version, something that would take 5 or 10 minutes at most. Perhaps you let yourself arrive a few minutes later instead of rushing and risking your safety. Perhaps you ask someone else to bring dessert. Perhaps you give yourself an early night. You do not need to announce this to anyone else. You can, if it feels right, But even if you do it quietly, it will start to change the way your days feel from the inside. Carrying the song forward is not about perfection. It is about honesty. It is about recognizing that our lives, like our favorite music, evolve over time. We can keep what still feels true, we can soften what hurts, and we can make room for new harmonies that include the people we are becoming. If reflections like this resonate with you, I invite you to join me on the Bountiful Path, my newsletter on Substack, where I write about healing, attention, seasonal rhythms, and the practical beauty of living with intention. Thank you for listening today. I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle. Your stories matter. Your choices matter. Your presence matters. Until next time, be well. And let's keep walking this path together.